all in it.
Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Cross Talk. Well, one can't really say that yesterday was a day of national mourning, but I guess some people are mourning. Donald Rumsfeld, twice Secretary of Defense in the United States, died at the age of 88. It's amazing how people who hold the most senior positions of government inflict an enormous amount of human misery, manage to die in their beds, surrounded by family, into their late 80s and 90s. So that's par for the course.
Yeah.
We obviously know what Donald Rumsfeld is most famous for, which was during his second tour of duty as defense secretary during the George W. Bush administration. He led the effort in Iraq. And today he's largely a reviled person. Everyone piled on top of him and denounced him and so on. And, for us, this is entirely justified. But I would make two caveats, which is, first of all, at the time, in 2003, the invasion of Iraq was immensely popular. This wasn't just something cooked up by Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, and a few.
Very illegal and very illegal.
Yeah, exactly. The New York Times was on board. Everybody, the entire foreign, military, national security establishment was in favor of attacking Iraq. And let's say what they subscribed to. They subscribed to the fact that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. He didn't. Saddam Hussein was allied with Al-Qaeda. He wasn't. Saddam Hussein was involved in the attack on 9/11, the terrorist attacks of 9/11. He wasn't. But these three things were all accepted all across the board. I remember when they had that debate in the Senate, and one after another, all the senators trotted out.
Biden.
Including Biden, including Hillary Clinton. They subscribed to all three of those notions. So, it's nice now to pretend that, it was all Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld. So that's one point. The second point is, and that is a more troubling one, that too many of the people who purport to be anti-war or against the Iraq war or whatever are only anti-war if they are waged by Republicans. You get Obama or Biden waging it, and suddenly they're all very happy with it. I mean, a case in point was Rachel Maddow, who actually became quite well known during the Bush years as being the stalwart opponent of the Iraq war. And then once Obama was in and he started bombing Libya, she was all gung-ho and cheering him on, and then cheering on all his nonsense in Syria. So we really have to be very, very wary of people who are against wars on a partisan basis, all depending on who's waging the wars, and particularly those, quote, liberal and anti-war people who then embrace the Democrats. Anyway, Peter, what was your take?
Yeah, okay, I think you put it well. Donald Rumsfeld is widely reviled for being the architect of an illegal war. But George, why can't they revile the system that created him?
Good point, yeah.
That's my thing. I'm not going to pile on like everybody else, a special place in hell for him. Okay, whatever. Okay. Exactly. But when do we look at the system that created it and look at the bipartisanship that created that? Okay. He didn't come out of a vacuum. All right. I mean, and go back to my usual mantra here. He is a classical, quintessential outcome of the professional managerial class, where they think that they are the gods of the universe and they can do no wrong, and they definitely know better than the rest of us, don't they? Okay, that's just a pure example of these people that think they know what they're doing. It has nothing to do with reality on the ground. As a matter of fact, I think it was Wolfowitz that said, we can create our own reality. I think at least it was one of the those cohorts. So there. And this shows, in retrospect, when you think about it, as a historical juncture, this was the unipolar moment. It could have been used for good, but it was definitely used for bad. Okay. And I think looking back historically, we'll see this was one of the greatest missed opportunities ever.
Yeah,
because
yes, I think that's right. It is a little reminiscent of the Vietnam War. Again, the entire media, political, intellectual elite in the United States, from the late 1950s on through to the late 1960s, supported the Vietnam War. Everybody was on board. David Halberstam, the author of the famous Best and the Brightest, wrote a book, basically saying that Vietnam is one of the 5 or 6 key places where it's absolutely essential that the United States makes a stand. So everybody's New York Times, everyone was on board. Then when the war went south, and people pretended that they'd been against the war all along. It's a lie. So it was the same way. And then somebody had to be the fall guy. And in the case of Vietnam, the fall guy was Robert McNamara, and then of course General William Westmoreland. So it seemed like, oh well, it was because of these 2 terrible people.
2 people, 2 right. Personalities.
Exactly. Yeah.
We always do that. The next Hitler, the new Hitler. Right. You don't look at the system that created it and the missed opportunities. I mean, the interesting thing is, again, learning the wrong lessons is that the Iraq War, well, they looked back and said, well, the press really, after the Tet Offensive, they abandoned ship, didn't they? Why don't we embed them and put them in uniforms and make them look real important, right, okay? Right. And that's exactly what no body bags, okay? No body bags, no ceremonies, okay? Right. Instead of saying, doing this is wrong and it's been proven to be wrong. I mean, it's all, it was kind of a different iteration of the domino effect, except for, Condoleezza Rice saying, these are the birth pangs of democracy in the Middle East, I mean, Condoleezza Rice, how do you even show your face in public?
I know. Well,
oh, she was considered to be for vice president, remember?
Exactly. And that's
great. No, because not just her, but she was a product of a system. Right. I'm critiquing the system through her.
Yeah, that's again an analogy with Vietnam. So apparently, there's this terrible, bloodletting that took place in the aftermath of Vietnam in the United States. No, McNamara went off to a very cushy job at the World Bank. Mac Bundy, cushy job as a professor at NYU. Walt Rostow went off. He was at the University of Texas in Austin. Everyone did very well. I mean, there were no bloodletting. No people saying, "Oh God, I can't get a job because I'm so."
I guess, except for maybe LBJ, which he was left holding the bag.
Except LBJ, and it's true. LBJ was a broken man. I mean, that war absolutely broke him, and he died soon after as a sort of a broken heart. But everybody else, they did all right. No one went poor. The same thing happened in the aftermath of Iraq. All the architects, all the Bill Cristols and Fife, Richard Pearl. Wolfowitz, that's what I was thinking of. Wolfowitz, they all went on to very cushy job. Wolfowitz actually almost got the World Bank job, but I think he unfortunately was involved in some sexual liaison. That's the only reason he didn't get that World Bank job. So he tried that arc, the Robert McNamara arc. But everyone failed upward. So there was no reckoning. And so, as always, the reckoning is of those who try to expose the crimes, such as John Kiriakou, tried to expose the torture, Julian Assange, the war atrocities. You try to expose atrocities, you will pay a heavy price. Disastrous decisions leading to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. Right this way, sir. Would you like a professorship?
Right. Exactly. What is the name of the journalist? His first big story was the My Lai massacre, and then
Sy Hersh.
Where's he, George?
Yep.
Because he continued to do it with Afghanistan, with Iraq, and then the alleged gas attacks in Syria. How the greatest journalist of his generation, not this Bernstein nonsense. These guys are jokes. Okay. Where's the greatest journalist of that generation? Can't even get published in the United States. Then he tried to do it in English language German press, and then I think the Times Literary Supplement was going to publish something, but then pulled away.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And why? Because he exposed that story, the Ghouta story, that it was Bashar al-Assad who had launched that wildly implausible mass gas attack, killed 1,000 people. He wasn't responsible for that attack. I mean, and that it was a put-up job. That he couldn't get published. You know, he was at the New Yorker, and that was the thing. New York was happy to publish Hirsch so long as he was anti-Bush. You know, that's good. You know, as long as you're bashing Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, you know, they're happy to publish you. You actually call into question the parameters of the national security state and say, yeah, that claim that this atrocity was perpetrated by official enemy number one, that's a whole crock. You know, it was all made out of whole cloth. You don't get published for that.
Do you think the 1,000 people that died, whoever killed them, do you think that they cared if it was a Republican or a Democrat? I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah. So, Rumsfeld, you can call him a tragic figure if you want, but I don't care about Rumsfeld. I really don't, okay? I care about the system that allowed him to do that is well-oiled and greased and given full protection by the professional managerial class, the media, and the rest of them. With his death, we have learned nothing good.
Nothing, exactly. And that's why, we can, anticipate that doubtless within the next year or two, Dr. Kissinger will be no longer with us. He's already, I think, 95. So, who knows? In any day we're going to see his name in the deaths column, and we will have the same familiar orgy of, oh, great, wonderful, jumping up and down. But again, as you say, we've learned nothing. I mean, the idea of feeling good about a very old man whose payday was 50 years ago, it only leads us to think, well, we're no longer committing those crimes because that happened 50 years ago. No, we still are. And the more you go on about something that happened 50 years ago, the less you're paying attention to what's going on now. You're not paying attention to, Biden just simply launching a bombing attack.
Yeah, I mean,
every day, no one even pays any attention to it.
Dr. Kissinger had the ear of presidents, okay? One of the most prestigious influence peddling organizations in Washington for half a century. He dated some of the most beautiful women in Hollywood. They're not going to talk about his record, though, are they?
Right.
They're going to talk about his lifestyle.
Right. But even as I say, the record. I mean, I want to talk about things as something that's more recent. The problem whenever you go back into the ancient history. Is that you lead people to think that we don't do those things anymore, and that's why remember when you've talked about this, when Laura Ingraham had on James Woolsey, the CIA director. Well, we don't do those things anymore, do we? And then Woolsey said, he at least had the honesty. But the point is that with these people who write about foreign policy, they suggest, well, that was then. Well, yes, we were involved in Mossadegh. And
in that same interview was kind of, well, you have 53.
Allende. Yeah, true, we were involved in that, but that was 50 years ago. We don't do that anymore. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, but I'm glad you brought up that interview. Why didn't Laura Ingraham follow up?
Right. Yeah.
That was a disgrace. It was a real disgrace. Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you go against power, they will make you pay dearly. Phil Donahue, I wasn't a fan, okay? But he had the most popular daytime television program for I don't know how many years. He went against the war, canceled. Have you ever heard of him since? John Mearsheimer, the greatest living international relations theorist, bar none, banned.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very good point, because those people, like particularly Donahue, they actually really did go against the grain. In other words, they actually attacked the war at a time when it was still touch and go. I mean, there was still a chance of altering things. So in other words, that took a little bit of courage. Anybody can be against the war when it no longer matters because the invasion has already taken place. So who the hell cares now that you're against it? But when he came out against it, they could still change things. That's why the system destroyed him. Not the sort of phonies like Maddow, who were against it when it no longer mattered.
Yeah. I to be honest with you, George, I haven't looked at the obituaries from the official media because there's just other things to read. Okay, I mean, you and I do this every single day. There's to do, but I'll stay with my critique. They won't critique the system that created a man that allowed him to do the things he did. Okay, and shame on the power elites. Okay, you just don't have the capacity to learn, do you? Just don't.
Yep. That's right.
All right, everybody, we're on Local, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. George and I have started a series of talking with gagglers one-on-one through Zoom. I have to say it's a real thrill to do it. It's a lot of fun. We actually learn from why people are listening to us. That's always interesting for us. And if there's any way you can help, we have a tip jar. I think he's fighting with the other dog. Buddy's tip jar. Anything you can do to help us. In all seriousness, we like to joke a lot, but it does help. Okay,
it helps enormously. The more we can help, the better these shows will be. So, and we want to get as good as we can be. There he is,
the star,
the man of the hour. We're also on Rumble. Look us up on Rumble, and remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.